Welcome to MacStories Unwind, a weekly review of everything MacStories and more. I'm John Voorhees, and with me as always is Federico Vitici. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. You know, we've had another big week at MacStories. Lots going on, lots of reviews, widgets, new iPad layouts, all kinds of things, as well as some news and link posts. And it's been a busy week, and it's been a lot of fun. We've got a lot of apps to tell everybody about.
We've covered tons of apps on MacStories. In fact, you can go to MacStories.net and just scroll the homepage. We also have separate hubs for just collecting all the iOS 14 related coverage that we've done, as well as more specifically widgets that we've covered. So there's going to be both of those links in the show notes, and you can go check those out if you want to catch up. I know that I have to catch up on our own coverage. So
right.
I plan to do that myself over the weekend as a distraction from the iOS 14 review that I'm continuing to finish. Sounds kind of funny, but that's what I'm doing. Now, I wanted to recap some of the highlights from the apps that we've covered. I wanted to start with Apollo, the excellent Reddit client from Christian Selig, who we interviewed on App Stories a couple of years ago, maybe. We had a conversation with Christian about the making of Apollo, sort of the background. Apollo, of course, was the absolute best Reddit experience on iOS before. Just one of the best apps on the platform, hands down. Now it's also one of the best examples of how to implement widgets in iOS 14, both because of customization, because of all the configuration options that you have for widgets, and also because of all the layouts and different widget types that you can install. You can choose from, for example, photo widgets that load pictures from photo-centric subreddits, and you can choose between large, medium, and small, of course. You can have a grid of posts from any of your favorite subreddits. Of course, you can configure the widgets to say, fetch data from my home, which means all of my subscriptions, or a group of subreddits, or a specific subreddit. So really well done in terms of configuration. You can also have like a grid of subreddits that sort of looks like the old shortcuts widget. You have a bunch of colored rectangles that serve as launchers for those subreddits in the Apollo app. It's just really well done. And there's also a couple of fun ones. One is called Shower Thoughts, and it loads random, mildly interesting facts from the Shower Thoughts subreddits. And there's also a jokes widget that loads random jokes from that community on Reddit. Those are mostly dad jokes, really. So it should be perfect for you, John. Should be perfect for you. You're a dad.
Definitely.
You like dad jokes. So
Absolutely.
Apollo, go check it out. Really, really well done.
All right, Federico, the first app that I want to cover today is Lear. And Lear is an RSS client that you and I have used on and off for a number of years.
Yeah.
But other than a Mac Catalyst app the version that I covered last year, we haven't actually ever reviewed the iOS app. So this review is a little more in depth. It's one that I did that goes through all the different features of the app. But the thing I want to highlight for this show is the widget. So Lear has two different kinds of widgets. There's one called Articles, and the other one is Hot Links. And Hot Links is a feature of Lear where you can see the links that the app finds in the feeds that you follow that are repeated over and over again. So you can get a sense for what people are talking about online. But the Articles widget is really interesting because it's one of the most customizable of the widgets that I've seen, because this widget lets you pick a source for within the RSS feeds that you follow. That can be a particular website. It could be a folder that you've set up of many feeds. It can even be an author or a tag. So it's really versatile in terms of the source. In addition to being able to pick the source with a lot of detail, you can also filter your articles by status. So that means, any status, unread or starred, the style, whether it's a linked list or any kind of article. And then the final option is title search. So on top of all these other customizations, you can create a search term to pull out particular articles. And what's really nice about all this customization is that even with the largest widget, it only shows 4 articles at a time. So this allows you to really drill down with the customizations to the exact articles that you care about. And I found it really a great one. The other thing worth mentioning about Lear is that the iPad app has a great 3-column layout as well. So if you haven't checked out RSS readers in a while, Lear is definitely one that takes advantage of a lot of iOS 14 features, so worth a look.
Lear is super good, especially on iPad with multi-window and trackpad, drag and drop, multi-column. Fantastic example of like what a modern iPad experience should be. John, tell me about the latest grocery update.
Yeah, Grocery is an app that I've covered before, and with the last review that I did, Grocery went far beyond just list creation to include things like food inventory, meal planning, and recipes. And what's interesting about this update is that it brings a series of widgets to the app that the one that I think is most interesting is related to recipes, because the app allows you to set multiple timers. And if you are following a recipe in Grocery and have started a timer, when you go back to the home screen and have that widget installed, you can see the timer counting down, which is really fantastic. I've only seen a couple of widgets that are using live timers, whether they're counting up or counting down. I've seen, I know Timery, which is not quite out yet as of publishing this, does that as well. But Grocery is the only other app that I've seen doing that. And that's kind of a nice way to keep track of where your timers stand if you're moving between apps while you're cooking. So great update. A whole bunch of other widgets available in terms of lists, the stores that you shop at, so you can see, how many items you need at each store. You can see if you use the larger widgets, you can actually see your grocery list right on the home screen. Very, very good implementation, especially for an app that is designed to be glanceable, because you're walking through a grocery store or something, trying to pick up your groceries for the day. Definitely worth checking out.
We covered Fantastical, really excellent example of how to take advantage of widgets and widget configuration in iOS 14. So the latest Fantastical update is all about iOS 14 and adding widgets to the home screen. What's really nice about this one is that you have a lot of choice when it comes to the types of widgets that you want to install and how you can stack them and how you can configure them. You can choose from a large date to a mini calendar to up next in multiple sizes to tasks to a combination of calendar and tasks and events together. And of course, there's full support for calendar sets, which means you can install multiple widgets and configure each one to load data from a different calendar set, for example. This is a really nice example of what developers can do with the new Widget Kit APIs, not just in terms of design and like different layouts, different sizes, but in terms of the data that they display and the options that you can configure in the widget itself. You can just tap and hold, load the widget configuration screen. And from there, in addition to loading from, as I mentioned, specific calendars or calendar sets, you can also toggle display options for the widget. So maybe you want to show the weather, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to see tasks, maybe you only want to see events, or maybe you want to see both of them together. So one of the premier examples, I think, of widget configuration in iOS 14, and the idea that you can stack different versions of the Fantastical widgets so that you can have in the same slot like a widget for, say, a work calendar, and in the same slot, a widget for your personal calendars. Really interesting idea, something that I'm playing around with personally.
Yeah, Ryan this week also covered Weatherline, which is a weather app that added a widget. And what's interesting about Weatherline is that it doesn't have any real data customization, but it can be configured to look a whole bunch of different ways. I mean, there's all kinds of designs that can be implemented here. And just give you a quick overview of the weather. If you're familiar with Weatherline, it really focuses on giving you a forecast based on a line graph. And you can have that look in a bunch of different ways on your home screen. So if that's a weather app that you're using, it's worth taking a look at that widget as well. We also had this week on the site Tim Nahumick, who did a review of Drafts. And Drafts is one of the widgets that I used first. It's really pretty powerful. You can use a small, medium, or large widget to access everything from a button that takes you into dictation, to your various workspaces or individual notes. It's a really powerful widget if you're a Drafts power user. I use Drafts mainly as a scratch pad, but having the ability to get into a scratch pad note automatically and quickly, and also being able to dictate notes, is a real fantastic feature, and that's primarily what I've been using it for. Have you been using these widgets at all, Federico?
No, because I haven't played around with the app in a while. But I kind of want to because of all the different options. Anything that is, text related and is highly configurable has my attention.
Sure.
So I wanna play around with those.
All right. So the other app that I covered this week was AnyBuffer, and AnyBuffer is a shelf app. It's a great app for storing bits of data, whether it's a URL, some text, an image, whatever it happens to be, even files. And what I like about this app is the ability to organize things into individual shelves. I have one for, Mac Stories, one for the club, one that's just kind of a temporary fun one where I have like GIFs and things like that. And then it also has an automatic inbox. So if you just dump things into the app from the share extension and things like that, they end up in the inbox, and you can then organize them from there. Or I really use the inbox primarily as the scratch pad section of AnyBuffer, where if I just need something to be parked somewhere for a little while, I leave it in the inbox and I delete it later. But if it seems like something I want to keep, I have the option to move it to one of the other shelves as well, which is nice. And with the update, they've added widgets. There is a widget variety that you can access individual shelves that you've created. So I have a medium one of those that accesses four of my most used shelves. And there's also an action widget that I like a lot that lets you do things like jump right into a search on AnyBuffer, or take a quick note, scribbling. It's customizable, so there's a number of different actions. A lot of the actions are search-based, whether it's searching globally across all your shelves or searching in a particular shelf. So a lot of customization there that you can do, which should fit a lot of different needs.
We also covered widget creation apps. Now, of course, widgets are extremely popular right now because of the whole, thing where people finding their own aesthetic on the home screen.
Right.
So we thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a roundup of all these custom widget creation apps that allow you to create your own widget, whether you want to display a specific set of data on the home screen, or you want to use photos, you want to use custom colors. Ryan had a collection of all these widget apps, including Widgetsmith, of course, the world's most popular app at the moment, by our friend _David Smith, but also other ones like Widget Wizard, like Widgeridoo, which we're going to cover in the upcoming episode of App Stories on Monday. So stay tuned for a few wild things that I've personally done with Widgeridoo. Yeah, and of course, there's also Glimpse, version 2 of Glimpse. Glimpse is this utility that lets you create widgets from a portion of a web page, sort of like harkening back to the dashboard days on macOS, where you could have a Safari, like a web view widget. You can sort of do that with Glimpse. So that's definitely go check it out. Lots of ideas there in terms of custom widgets that you can create. And finally, I want to mention Soar, the Apple Music client that Ryan also covered. And Soar was already a fantastic alternative to the music app on iOS, but now it comes with the widgets that, if you ask me, John, the Soar widgets are exactly what Apple should have done with widgets in music. The music widgets are kind of lazy in iOS 14. There's only one for recently played music. Soar has a now playing widget with App Next support. It has a widget for your favorites, for recently played items, as well as for Magic Mixes, which is the Soar take on smart playlists, essentially, which is another thing that Apple has never done. So if you are a heavy music listener, as I am, for example, you want to check out Soar and the Soar widgets because they are super good.
Yeah, they really are. All right, Federico, that really covers the apps that we did this week, but we had a few other stories on the site as well. And one that I covered was all the options for changing your default browser and your default email client. I kind of run through everything as of today where it stands. I'm sure there will be more coming in the future, But, you've got options for things like Firefox and the Edge browser from Microsoft and Chrome, as well as Spark and Outlook and other email clients. So check that out if you're looking to switch your default browser or your email client. And with the latest update to iOS 14, the bug that existed that reset your defaults to Safari and the Mail app when you restarted your phone, that has been fixed. So once you set these defaults, they'll stick now, which is really nice.
Yeah. There's still one remaining bug that people have been pointing out to me on Twitter.
Oh,
Even if you set a third-party email client, if you tap a mail to link in Safari, Safari still loads the default mail composer instead of the third-party email client of your choice.
Yeah, I've run into that one too.
Yeah. Also, I shared a new shortcut, or should I say a new version of an old shortcut called Wall Creator. So Wall Creator started as a shortcut in MacStories Weekly 2 years ago, late 2018, and I updated it for iOS 14 and for people who may want to create a custom colored wallpaper for their home screens. So this shortcut will automatically see whether you're using an iPhone or an iPad, and it'll let you create a wallpaper either with a solid color or with a custom gradient of your choice. So in the original version of this shortcut, you could only the manual mode was supported. You needed to put in a color code for the colors that you wanted to use. And at the end, you would have an image that you could save to the photos library. You need to do this manually, this saving process, because unfortunately, shortcuts cannot set a wallpaper for you. However, in the new version that is available for free on MacStories, Wall Creator also supports random color generation. So you can create random solid colors as well as random gradients. So really fun to play around with. The random generation thing generates really beautiful gradients. So keep playing around with it and keep creating random colors until you find the color you like or the gradient you like. And then you can set that as your wallpaper. So really fun to play around with, I say.
Yeah, I like your tip of actually putting Wall Creator on the home screen and then using Compact UI to cycle through the random wallpapers. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's a nice idle thing to do while you're watching TV or something until you find something that you really like. We had a few other stories that I want to mention, Federico. We also had, Apple this week put out some new pages on its website that talk a little bit about the App Store and the developer program. These were pretty clearly a reaction to a lot of the controversies surrounding the company about the developer program and anti-competitive behavior and all those sorts of things. And it was interesting from that perspective, but it was also interesting because there were a lot of new statistics about how many people are in the developer program and how many apps are reviewed a day and that sort of thing, how many reviewers there are, all sorts of little tidbits and details buried in there. And I kind of ran those down earlier this week. The iWork suite also got an update that added Scribble support. There are a handful of other features that are available, such as on iOS and iPadOS. The new photo and video picker is supported, but Scribble was kind of the headlining feature. And then also, I guess Ryan linked to a really good story that Jason Snell did over on 6 Colors, which was talking about computer personalization. And this was really a story that Jason put together in response to some of the criticism we've seen online of people customizing their iOS home screens and making them look ugly. And there's been a reaction against that sort of thing on Twitter especially. And Jason points out, I think quite rightly, that there's a very long history of customization on the Mac and all Apple computers. So, go to it, people, and enjoy yourselves, because it's a nice way to be creative, and people shouldn't be shaming anybody.
You only live once. Why don't you have some fun customizing your home screen? That's my advice.
Exactly. Federico, tell us a little bit about App Stories this week.
On App Stories, we had the last interview for our summer series of OS previews with designer Michael Flarup. So you may be familiar with Michael's work. He's done some really excellent icons for some of our favorite apps like Working Copy, Secure Shellfish, I believe Yarn Body, by Becky and Smeyer, was also done by Michael, if I'm not mistaken. So Michael's work, his reputation precedes him for sure. And we had a conversation on App Stories all about design. So new design trends in iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. And of course, you can imagine, we talked about the new Big Sur icons coming in the next release of macOS.
Right.
So definitely a fun conversation. It's always fascinating to hear Michael's perspective on all this, and especially on the coming and going on of all the new design trends. Michael has been doing this, has been working on this stuff for more than a decade, really. He knows what he's talking about. So it's always awesome to talk to someone who's obviously so knowledgeable about his art, about his craft. So go check it out. That was episode 185 of App Stories. You can find it on appstories.net.
All right, Federico. We also had a lot of stuff in MacStories Weekly. We continued our giveaways for the second week. We had another 9 apps that we are giving away. So check that out if you're a club member and sign up. We also did a second collection of apps with widgets. There's another 6 here, including apps like Flighty and Game Track and IMDb. I'll be talking a little bit more about IMDb on App Stories on Monday, because that's turned out to be one of my that's a sleeper widget for me. That's one that I didn't really expect a big company like IMDb to do a great job with widgets, but they did a really nice job with their set. Ryan wrote an extension column all about the Apple One bundle for services. And then we had a very special home screen from a writer from the website Twinfinite. Rebecca Stone has done an exceptional home screen that is Zelda themed. And that's all I'm going to say for now. So if you're a club member, go check it out, because her home screen is fantastic. I ran across it on Twitter earlier in the week, and I contacted her immediately to see if she would write about it and how she did it and what the thought process was. And she did a great post about that. And beyond that, we also have had a lot of the usual stuff, lots more apps, as well as Q&A and links. All right, Federico, let me tell you about our sponsor for this episode, and that is Terra AI. With Terra AI, engineering teams can reclaim valuable time and effort that would otherwise be wasted sifting through a bottomless pit of tickets. Terra accomplishes that through a simple modern design that gets out of the way, allowing teams to move quickly and efficiently, delivering their releases on schedule. The app combines sprint planning and a unified task view to provide a clear bird's eye view of your project and the priorities. And it's all synced to Git as well. So everyone on the engineering team and other teams knows exactly what's happening and when. From the time you sign up and create your workspace through every phase of your project, its design and the entire process sets Terra apart from the pack. Terra is loaded with thoughtfully considered features like quick stats that show the progress that you're making during your sprints, with daily and weekly progress insights alongside commits and pull requests. Modern teams move fast, and they expect their tools to just work. Terra AI delivers with no user and task limits, completely free of charge. Visit Terra AI to learn more about this incredible tool. Again, that's Terra AI. Our thanks to Terra AI for their support of MacStories and Unwind.
All right, John, it is time for our Unwind picks, and you may not believe me, but I have one for you and for our listeners.
Nice.
I've been able to enjoy some new music,
see.
finally. So I've only listened to this new album once, but I was familiar with some of the singles before, and I can recommend it. So this is the new album by Machine Gun Kelly. It's called Tickets to My Downfall.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Machine Gun Kelly, it's a bit of a controversial figure. He started out as a rapper years ago. This is his 5th album, I believe. And eventually he turned into this sort of like pop punk provocateur type of figure.
Right.
Is an interesting person to follow and to listen to. Now, what's really peculiar about this album is that it's a bit of a musical left turn, if you will, in that he moved away from the traditional rap and trap style of his previous work. This is like an actual pop punk album that is actually produced by Travis Barker, the drummer of Blink-182.
Oh,
So,
okay, that makes sense. There's definitely some similar sounds there, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So Machine Gun Kelly has been sort of inching toward this sort of sound over the past couple of years,
Hmm.
and this album I think is sort of like the culmination of that work. Of course, Machine Gun Kelly has collaborated with the likes of Travis Barker before, Young Blood, who also has a new album coming out. But this one, Tickets to My Downfall, really enjoyable. There's a couple of really standout hits that I would like to recommend. Just let me double check the titles. One is called Forget Me Too, and it's about I guess it's about struggling with addiction. Machine Gun Kelly had problems with all kinds of addictions before, and this shows in the themes and the lyrics of this album. So Forget Me Too featuring Halsey, really good song. And I also recommend My Ex's Best Friend featuring Black Bear. And I also enjoyed Bloody Valentine, which was one of the singles before the album's release. So surprisingly enjoyable pop punk album by Machine Gun Kelly. So if if you're the type of person who enjoys Blink 182 and modern acts like Youngblood, for example, definitely give this one a listen.
Yeah, I'll have to give that one a try. I had heard at least one of the singles before that you had shared with me, and I enjoyed it. So I'm gonna check this album out. I have just a single for you, Federico, because I'm kind of in the same boat that you were in last week, where it's been kind of a crazy week, and I haven't really watched any TV or anything like that, or played any video games. So I'm going to recommend Betty by Taylor Swift, but this is not the single from the album.
Yeah,
This is the live version that just came out a couple of days ago, I think. That was she performed on the Country Music Awards, and I love live music, and I think there have been times in Taylor Swift's career where I think people have assumed that she isn't much of a musician, that she's more of a performer. But when you see or hear her actually play live, you realize what an incredible musician and what an incredible
Absolutely.
talent she is. And that's definitely shown off here. I think this is one of her best songs off the new album, and hearing it live and just done acoustic on a guitar is absolutely fantastic. So don't miss this out. She's been putting out a series of EPs, which are
Yeah,
subsets of songs from
yeah.
the full album,
And the
Folklore.
titles are really fun.
Yeah, they are really fun, and each one tends to have a few songs from Folklore, but also has something else, like
Some extras.
right,
Yeah.
a bonus track, or like this one. And this came out earlier this week, and I really enjoyed it. All right, Federico, that's it for this week on Unwind. Of course, thanks again to Terra AI for sponsoring. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. Federico is on Twitter and Instagram. He's at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next Friday, Federico.
Ciao, John.